Thank you. I've got a couple of challenges over here. The first is to speak after such inspiring and eloquent speakers like Susan and Swanee, especially about microfinance. And the second is to be in between a hungry audience and lunch. So I'll try to keep it very specific. So the plan is to keep it short. I'll talk about the organization that Scott just mentioned. Kashf, the name Kashf in Arabic means a process of revelation. It's a miracle. It's a process of revelation. And I learned about this in the 10 years that I've served Kashf Foundation. It started in 1995 by Roshani when she met Professor Yunus. This was a chance encounter. She was attending a conference, and there was Professor Yunus sitting over there, and he learned, and she started asking him questions about microfinance. So then the challenge was to set up a replicable model in Pakistan. And the challenge was that in Pakistan, the society is such that there are lots of myths. And the biggest myth was that women are not creditworthy. And the entire program had to be built around that. So we had to set up a women-centric microfinance in Pakistan. This was never done before. Since its inception, since its creation in 1947, we had never had such an experience. Today, based on the breaking of those myths, Kashf has been able to disperse almost $265 million to over 1.9 million households. So that is where Kashf stands at the moment. But our commitment to being a gender equitable organization is not just for the communities that we serve, it's also in the organization that we have. So the entire organization, right from the board to the field officers, has a 50% gender balance. So that's the other thing that we ensure at Kashf. So what's the theory? Why do we feel that it is important for women to be economically empowered? Things that have already been spoken about, so I'll just quickly look at the 4 areas. The first is, of course, economic growth. We know that there's a huge difference that happens in the GDP once women get a chance to participate in the economy. There's the other, especially specific to Pakistan, is the long-term social benefit. Because the more involved you have women in the economic activity, their marriages are delayed, and they have lower fertility rates as well. That's the other element. The contribution towards households is the third element. Increased control over household resources, empower women, and I'll share a few examples with you of that as well. And of course, the opportunity cost. There's billions of dollars of revenue that can be earned further when women participate in an economy, especially like an economy which has 92 million people to feed in Pakistan. So that's a huge population to serve. So what's a typical Kashf client look like before this lady accesses services from Kashf? Some of the very similar characteristics are a high dependency ratio, minimal business activity, they've got low income, low savings, no safety nets, they are victims of familial violence, there's financial barriers, economic barriers, social barriers, cultural barriers, and of course political and legal barriers as well. So what's our approach? How does Kashf serve these? How do we, as an organization, what was the approach that we took in Pakistan to eradicate those barriers from women's progress? The first, of course, in terms of financial barriers, was that women face this lack of access to financial resources. Men in our societies, they control the cash. So what did we look at? We said we will have products which will only focus at women. So of the 1.9 million families that we've served, all of them are either women or the businesses are managed by women. So that's been our focus. Promoting accessible, affordable savings. That was the other key element. And of course, creating awareness amongst both men and women on gender justice. So we have what we call a gender empowerment and social advocacy cell within Kashf, which makes sure that this element is served as well. In terms of the economic barriers, women undertake activities which are usually which have a low return. They have a heavy domestic burden, so there's very little that they can participate in the economy. So what we looked at was that we started giving gender-friendly loans. So this was for the loans were then linked to what Susan also mentioned, a microfinance plus approach. And we made sure that there was business development training that they received, And we were the first to pioneer a financial literacy program. And this is a graduated program. It starts with basic financial literacy, goes to financial education, and then we link them up to what we call business incubation labs. So this is a graduated process of taking women to the next level. And I'm going to talk about some of our clients as well at the end, which are now members of that financial education program. The social cultural barrier, of course. It's about women not being literate or being educated. Again, what I just spoke about in terms of the financial training, and also making sure that we've changed the concept of the typical group, which Ramin started. Now we have a more cohesive, smaller group where women can then support each other in similar businesses and link it up with financial education. And at the end, of course, political and legal issues. So that, again, is being targeted by ensuring that we link women to certain products which give them property rights. So we've started this home improvement and house loan as well, which is only for women. So if you own a property, it's in your name as a woman, we give them the funds to then improve those, rent them out, use them for businesses. So that's the approach that we have. So in terms of some of the quick stories that I wanted to share with you. Now, before coming to Oslo, which I came yesterday, I went last week and I visited both these clients again because they've been our sort of flagship stories. But then of the 2 million clients that we've served, I could only quickly have time to share 2 of those stories with you. Here's Parveen Baji. Now, this lady, she got married when she was 20. And she had to leave her city. From Lahore she went to Faisalabad. There, her husband fell ill. And because the husband fell ill, he actually had a paralysis attack. And the reason for that was that the husband's brother ran into an accident, and out of depression, he went into a paralysis attack. Now, she was expecting a 7th child. She was expecting a 7th child at the time. She didn't have any source of income. And this was the time when she met one of her neighbors. The neighbor was a moneylender. And she asked this moneylender for a small loan to buy a sewing machine. That was the only thing that she knew. So she bought a sewing machine. This is way back in 1999. Till 2001, she tried to repay the loan of that moneylender. And in 2001, her sister-in-law told her about Kashf Foundation. And then she took a loan. And when I met her same day last week, she had, because we have this financial education training, and she is one of the mentors over there. So she had tears in her eyes when she told me that the most difficult part of her life when she was trying to repay that 2-year loan from a moneylender. So then she started taking loans from Kashf Foundation. And today, 3 of her daughters and herself, they have a small training institute within their house. And they teach other women in communities how to sew. So that's Parveen Baji for you. Her entire story is over. I'll skip the story. I'll just go to the next one. Here's another. Because I wanted to keep it short. See, lunch. Anyway, the next one is Saima. An even more inspiring story. She had a husband whose business flopped. I mean, the husband was running a small grocery store. He became a drug addict. And this lady, Saima, she had 7 daughters. And they had no source of income. They had a small house, and the husband started beating her up and wanted to sell the house. That was the time when Kashf Foundation came into the picture, and we offered her a loan. She had the skill of making hand-embroidered dresses. And when she started making those dresses, the people in the community started getting attracted towards her, and she started selling those in the local community. After 7 years, Saima today owns one of the largest networks in that community of hand-embroidered dresses. And she is someone who was then featured by Nicholas Kristof in his book, Half the Sky. And then her story was also published. And actually, she was featured by Oprah Winfrey in her program. And her story also appeared in the New York Times. So this is the power of change that Kashf Foundation is trying to bring in. The story of Saima has been so inspiring for us that when Nicholas came again and we went to visit Saima, she had a big grin on her face and he said, my husband works for me now. So the thing is, that's the kind of change that we were able to bring in their life. So at the end, what is the kind of impact that you're looking at? There are three things. Excuse the two blocks over there, that's a typo. The three things. What we've seen over the last decade is that, decade and a half actually, is the three impacts that microfinance has on women's life. There's increase in income. We've seen that a mature client, we define mature, a client who's been with us for 3 to 5 years, there's a 51% increase in the income of clients when they continue the relationship with Kashf. There's an 89% increase in their saving after the third year. And 60% of mature clients think that their nutritional intake improves as compared to 35% of their new clients. So these are the three key impacts that we've seen of our work, and we feel that these are enough for us to keep striving forward with the same vigor for the work that we're doing. At the end, there's this article that Roshane, the managing director, Scott spoke about her. I had to fill in her shoes, and this was a very difficult job to do. Couldn't even sort of, could never imagine I'd be speaking over here for her. But then she wrote an article which said, gender equality is smart economics. And in that article, I took a quote out of this. This was an article that she published, that was published last month in all the local newspapers in Pakistan. She said that restoring human dignity can only be possible if both women and men can access economic opportunities equally. So that's where we think we will continue to strive for. So thank you so much for your patient time. Thank you. Thank you.